readers. Today we get to read one of Miss Shay's most favorite stories, and that's because I love the author Matt De La Pena, and he works with the illustrator to draw the pictures, Christian Robinson, and they created my most favorite story, Last Stop on Market Street. They tell another story today about Carmela, and she explores her neighborhood, so we're going to get to read all about Carmela Full of Wishes. Now remember, good readers always have a job to do, and our job this week is to compare and contrast two things from a story. So when you're using the word compare, you can go like this: same, same, same. If you're comparing two things, it means that they're alike, similar, or they both have something. But if you're contrasting, oh yeah, that means different, different. It means it's unlike, or you're saying, however, that's not the same. Oh yeah, I remember that we can use these words when we're describing compare and contrast. We can also use things like the same or different. I also love to make a Venn diagram at the end of my reading to help keep track of my thinking. Maybe you can do that at home. So, good readers sitting up so straight and tall. Carmela Full of Wishes. We're going to get to compare and contrast Carmela, the main character, with her brother, another character in this story. Carmela scootered along the uneven dirt patch, watching men stoop to work with their hands, her birthday bracelets jingling and jangling. The thick greenhouse air smelled of marigolds and overturned earth and fresh manure. Carmela knew exactly what manure was, but she didn't want to think about that. Not today. Today, she awoke to candles in her pancakes and her mom saying, "Happy birthday to you," and told her, "Go on, mija, make a wish." But Carmela's wish had already come true. She was finally old enough to go with her big brother. I wonder where they're going to go. Well, I'm looking at the neighborhood and I see signs in Spanish, Las Delicias Bakery. So maybe they live in a community with a lot of Spanish speakers. Carmela followed as he cut back onto the street at Freedom Boulevard, past the crowded bus stop and fenced-off repair shop, past the old folks' home where two hunched old women waved smiles, past the huge home improvement store where her dad used to stand around weekend mornings waiting for work. There's a man selling flowers out of his car. Carmela tried to make small talk with her brother as their metal cart rattled, but her brother didn't make small talk back. He didn't want her tagging along. "Too bad," she told him with a glare. A glare is like a stare. So we do know that these siblings have something in common, right? They both live in the same Hispanic neighborhood, but they're different right now because Carmela, she was really motivated by getting to spend time with her brother. That was her desire. But look at her brother's facial expression. Does he really want her there? We can tell by his face and by the way he, let's go back and reread. Her brother didn't make small talk back. So that tells us that the brother did not want to spend extra time with Carmela. Just outside the laundromat, she picked a lone dandelion growing around the concrete weeds. She pulled a breath and leaned toward the fuzzy white bulb. But just before she could blow, her brother butted in. "Did you even make a wish?" "You're supposed to make a wish. Everyone knows that." Of course I made a wish," she told him. But it was a lie. Carmela didn't know. Carmela helped her brother sort colors one-handed, helped him load the washers, one item at a time. While their clothes spun, her imagination turned, each new thought ushered in by a jingle of bracelets. Her brother found the sound annoying and shot her a dirty look. "Too bad," she told him with a glare. So we can tell by the pictures and by the words that Carmela's really enjoying getting to spend time and run errands with her brother, right? She's watching the clothes spin and her imagination's turning. But does her brother like spending time with her and running errands with her? No. So that's a way they might be different. She jingled her bracelets as she rode up to Miss Maria's vegetable stand. Ooh, throughout the middle of the story, I think we're going to get to learn more about the neighborhood that they both live in. Imagining a machine built into her bedroom wall, one that would spit out anything she could think of, but mostly candies. She jingled her bracelets in line at the locksmith shop, key shop. Imagining her mom sleeping in one of those fancy hotel beds she spent all day making for fancy guests. So these are illustrations of her imagination. This type of tissue artwork is something that I've seen before at a fiesta, which is a Mexican celebration, and she's imagining cutouts from it. She jingled her bracelets at the bodega down the block from their old apartment building, imagining her dad getting his papers fixed so he could finally be home. And then there's hearts all around and she's embracing her dad. So I wonder if Carmela and her brother are more similar because they might both be facing the same pain of not having their dad with them at home. She jingled her bracelets. Ooh, yeah, I have bracelets that I could jingle. A jingle's like shaking. She jingled her bracelets outside the pharmacy, eyeing the shiny new bikes in the window. Her brother stopped in his tracks. Why do you have to be so annoying? She thrummed her bracelets at him and said, "It's a free country." And so even though Carmela's really enjoying her walk through the neighborhood, right, I would describe that as blissful, he's finding it annoying and frustrating. The only time she didn't reach for her new jingly bracelets was when her brother ducked into his friend's house. Carmela slumped down on the curb, silently imagining all the things she could turn him into. The slimy pink tail of a rat, a cockroach scurrying away from the light, a wheelbarrow full of manure left in the sun. So we've gotten to see a lot about the thoughts Carmela has in her brain, her imagination. We haven't seen as much of her brothers, so we're not really able to compare their thoughts, but we could infer that her brother's frustrated by his words. She stared down at the dandelion in her hand. It seemed so much more important now that she knew it was a place to put her wishes. What if she made the wrong choice? Carmela tried to hop a curb on the long trip home, but her tire caught and her handlebars twisted and she went crashing into the concrete. Don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. But then she saw her dandelion crushed beside the drain. She looked up at her big brother, warm tears rolling down her cheeks. He lifted up her scooter. "You okay?" She shook her head and pointed. "My wish." So now we're seeing that maybe Carmela's brother is more similar to her than we thought. Because by his actions and his words checking on her, it shows that he does care about her. So they both care about each other. He took her by the arm and led her back up the block, past the laundromat and the flea market, past the greenhouses and the smell of manure, past the overgrown park and across the train tracks. See, they both get to observe the same community. He didn't stop until they made it to an abandoned farmhouse near a cliff overlooking the sea. "Close your eyes," he said. Carmela closed them. "Now make your wish," he said. Carmela listened to the ocean's hum in the distance. She listened to the squawking birds. She listened to the wind whistling past her ears. Whoosh, whoosh. If I was Carmela, I'd be feeling really peaceful. Then she opened her eyes. She saw hundreds of tiny white spores. Spores are the pieces of white things that come off of a dandelion when you blow it, lifting into the air, floating out toward the faraway surf. The sky was full of wishes. And it doesn't tell us what they're wishing, but I do want to look at their facial expressions. I think they're feeling the same. Maybe peaceful, happy to be together, or content. Let's go, her brother said. Don't you want to know my wish? She asked. He shook his head. If you tell it, it won't come true. She looked back one last time, then took off her bracelets. Oh yeah, 'cause she knew that frustrated him, and followed her brother home. The end. And then this illustration illustrates some workers working in the fields in the harvest. And so when we think about this story, good readers like to try their best to better understand the characters. And we did this by comparing and contrasting Carmela and her brother. Watch how I do it with my sentences. I'm going to use the word both. Both Carmela and her brother found joy in getting to experience their neighborhood, which was highly influenced by Spanish words, and so that tells us that they both live in a Mexican community. However, so this means I'm contrasting, right? Same as compare. Contrasting is different. However, Carmela was really upbeat and excited to be spending time with her brother, and her brother was frustrated until the end when they were the same again, and they both felt very peaceful together. So, I loved getting to learn more about Carmela and her brother with you. Bye.